The title of my talk is A New Spiritual Therapeutic Approach Through the Physical Representation of the Psychological Inner World, its demarcation to the outside and the inclusion of the vertical dimension. Es funktioniert nicht. Ist bei allen das Gleiche, ne? Yeah, okay. The issues I want to talk about, you can see here. And the first sentence I want to start with is the sentence, we can assume that every person has an inner psychological and mental world. Here, this inner world is presented within the green space of the circle. That means there are three mental spaces. My intrapersonal space, the space of the other, and the space around and between us, the interpersonal space. The way we move between the three spaces and within our own intrapersonal space is through our attention. That means with our attention location. What distinguishes one space from another is in everyday therapeutic practice, we can differentiate between feelings, experiences, tasks, images, responsibilities, opinions, that means views, insights, beliefs, and what we have heard today, also values. They form an intrapsychic system and strive to achieve a balance. In our world, when we are there, when we are with our attention location inside our inner world, we can focus on one of these six elements and connect with them physically. You could call that felt sense, embodiment, or mindful introspection. These connections are here indicated by the red bars. Using these three mental spaces, we can distinguish between 10 mental states. I will briefly discuss three of them, and well, the red one. When we are with our attention location in our intrapersonal space, within our self-boundaries, we can distinguish three directions of focus. The red arrow number one shows the mental mode with focus from inside to inside, I just mentioned. The second one, the second focus direction is from the own inner world to the outside. You can call it mindful perception of the exterior. The third one, the third focus direction is from one's own inner world to the inner world of the other. You can compare this mode with compassion. To illustrate this, we can use the metaphor of a guitar, which represents embodied experience. When person B connects, for example, with a feeling of grief, it is as if she is touching the grief guitar string. In compassion mode, or when person A is within his boundaries, he will sense his own grief string because string by resonance. So it is not him who activates his own grief string. When I work with patients, I often use the garden analogy. This analogy helps us to understand the importance of the garden fence, or rather the personal mental boundary. We can understand with this picture that our inner world is a living system that we can design and develop ourselves. As adults, we are responsible for our own inner garden. So we can have a beautiful tree in our garden, but also experiences and images of trauma. We can step outside with our attention location. In this mental state, we lose our direct physical connection to our six elements. This means that we cannot take our guitar outside. This mental state is characterized by our executive brain functions, such as analyzing, reflecting, classifying, planning, and judging. It is a cognitive state in which we are detached, disconnected, or dissociated. We can also visit the inner world of somebody else with our attention location and exchange feeling, experiences, tasks, images, responsibilities, and opinions. In psychotherapy, patients can use wooden sticks and a wooden figure to represent their inner world and the boundary to the outside. Here, I present 3 examples of exploring the inner world using these wooden sticks. At the top left, you can see a very narrow inner world, which can often be found in people with depression. The picture on the bottom left shows a pattern that we also encounter in autism. And the third image shows a healthy entrance where the exchange can be regulated at the door. On the left, we can see that the person is focused on the entrance. On the right, the person is looking at the gap in the garden fence. Once the client has identified with his figure, he will have a physical reaction when he looks at the gap. A gap in the border area is often an indication of post-trauma. Now I come to the spiritual part of my talk, the vertical dimension. The first time I came across the vertical dimension was when I asked a patient to depict his near-death experience using the sticks and the wooden figure. After setting up his fence, he picked up his figure and lifted it about 60 centimeters so that he could look down on his inner space. He was afraid to go further up. Maintaining his position with his wooden figure, he relived the experience he had during his near-death experience. Many of us experience heightened awareness without having a near-death experience. This mental state can last from a few seconds to several minutes. Here we can see a person lifting her figure to a height of almost 2 meters. From there, it was easier for her to look down at her own interior space. She had a healing feeling and saw up there a deceased friend and her father who died 20 years ago. It shows that the vertical 3-dimensional boundary visualization can evoke similarities with transcendent experiences or the effects of psychedelics. In his book Higher Self, Gregor Hasler mentions the following effects of psychedelic experiences, and the participants who do a vertical 3-dimensional boundary visualization mention comparable experiences. Perception is more receptive and less prejudiced than normal perception. They talk about everything is accepted completely just as it is. Fears and worries fade away. Life's tensions and conflicts tend to be transcended or resolved. They talk about a sense of wonder, respect, preference, humility, and devotion. The perception is more self-forgetful and selfless. One strives for nothing, desires nothing, and needs nothing. And the last one he mentioned, it gives life self-meaning. It proves that life is worth living. The differences between psychedelics and 3-dimensional boundary visualization is the participant and therapist can stop the mental state at any time simply by moving the figure downwards to the table. No substances are used, and the therapist is connected with the participants throughout the whole session. In a study, we examined the various mental states using the vertical 3-dimensional boundary visualization. The participants built their self-boundary with the sticks and placed a wooden figure within their mental space. Then they moved the figure horizontal 10 centimeters outwards, answered the questionnaires, and moved the figure back into the inner world before moving it 10, 40, and 100 centimeters upwards. They completed the questionnaire again before returning to the starting point. 37 people were guided through a 60-minute standardized vertical 3D session via video conference. Self-reported questionnaires and interview transcripts were collected for analysis. The results showed that the vertical 3D leads to enhanced self-awareness in 82% of the subjects, to increased integration, in 65% to greater balance, and in 73% to increased vitality. It was found that the ascending vertical experience evoked a significantly higher degree of bliss and feelings of expansion and timelessness than the horizontal movement. The vertical experience was most frequently described by participants using the terms connection, curiosity, and tranquility. The last slide I want to show you, we asked the participants about their physical sensations depending on their attention location. They reported significant differences. Within their own boundaries, they experienced the most intense and varied physical sensations. You can see it in the figure on the left. In the horizontal, disconnected mental state, physical sensations were least pronounced. See the figure in the middle. And during ascending, vertically, physical awareness diminished, but not as much as in the disconnected state. See the figure on the right. Okay, I would like to finish with this, and thank you for your attention.